Okay, in this video, we're going to look at how we deal with the square root in equations. So there's going to be a lot of things from equations from previous knowledge that comes into this. Now, the first thing is the opposite of square root is to square. So to get rid of the square root sign, I'm going to square this side. So it becomes x, and I'm going to take the whole thing, and I'm going to square it. Now, if I square this side, I also square this side. So it becomes 9 squared. So the square root of x, and then I square it, just ends up being x. And that's why I do it. I want to cancel out the square root sign. And this one is 81. We're going to go back and check it. So we have 81 square rooted is 9. Works perfectly. We can do the same thing with fractions. So we can take our x squared and we square it, and that would just give me x. So now we square the fraction. When we come to square the fraction, how we do that is we square the top number, so it's 1 squared, and we square the bottom number, so it's 3 squared. And again, we can check it. If you check that on your calculator, the square root of a ninth is a third. So let's build it up a little bit more. And let's start with one like this. So what I'm going to do here is divide both sides by 3. So this is just the algebra here, and I'll just show you the long way around. If I divide this side by 3, it will cancel out the 3 on top. So I'm also going to divide 12 by 3. So I end up with x squared is equal to 4. I square both sides, so that x is 16. So that bit there, I'm not going to write it in this time. That one squared and that one squared gives me this line here. Let's check it. 3 times the square root of 16. Square root of 16 is 4. 3 4s are 12. So that one, fine. So we're going to do the opposite. Instead of dividing by 3 here, we're going to times by 4. So when we times this side by 4 again, and timesing that by 4, and it's dividing by 4 as well, they cancel out. I multiplied this side by 4, so I'm going to multiply the other side by 4 as well. So I've got the square root of x is equal to 8. Square both sides, so it's x, and I square 8, which gives me 64. So now I'm going to check it. The square root of 64 is 8, divided by 4 is 2. So this one works as well. Okay, you can pause the video at any moment and try these on your own, or you can watch me do them. So I'm going to take away that 2 from both sides to begin with, like that. Now I'm going to divide by the 5. So I've divided this side by 5. I divide this side by 5 to get 6. Now I'm going to square the left-hand side, so I square the right-hand side as well, 36. Square root of 36, 6, times it by 5, 30, add 2 is 32. Works fine. Now here, the x is inside the square root sign on its own, but here I've got something attached to the x inside the square root sign. So I need to deal with this one a little bit differently. Let's divide both sides by 4 to begin with. So I'm just going to leave that x minus 3 in there. I'm going to divide this side by 4. I'm going to divide 28 by 4 to get me 7. Now, I'm not able to add 3 to both sides. Very important this. I can't add 3 to both sides because the 3 is inside the square root sign. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to square this whole thing here. If I square that, I've also got to square this one here. Now, by squaring that, I knock out the square root sign, so I'm left with x minus 3. And 7 squared is 49. And now I can add the 3 onto both sides. So you've got to get rid of that square root sign before you do anything else when there's a number inside it. Let's check it. 52, take away 3 is 49. Square root of 49 is 7. Times it by 4, 28. It works. So our final two, let's build them up. These are two separate ways of doing it. Here we got the square root of x on its own. So this one's not too bad. I'm going to add that 11 onto both sides to begin with. So this stays like that. It becomes 32 by adding 11. Then I'm going to times both sides by 2. So we've still got this square root of x. But now it's 64. And now I square this side. And I square this side. So that's going to be 64 times by 64. And I'm just going to do that one on my calculator. You can double check this. It's 4096. And I'm going to check now that it works. So 4096 square rooted is 64. 64 divided by 2 gives me 32. Take away 11 gives me 21. So that one works. Now, that one's fine because the x is on its own inside the square root. But here, we've got some numbers inside the square root. So what I'm going to do with this to begin with is times both sides by the 8. When I times 8 and divide it by 2, I get 4. All of this is in the square root. So I want to get rid of the square root sign next. So I square both sides. So square that side. And it knocks out the square root sign. I square this side. It gives me 16. So now I'm able to just treat this like a linear equation. I'm going to take 7 away. And I'm going to divide this by 3 and this by 3 to get 3. Now I'm going to check it. 3 times 3 is 9. Add 7, 16. Square root 16 gives me 4. Divided by 8, I get half, 4 over 8. So that one works as well. So all these equations really are just about getting rid of the square root sign and the different ways in which we do it and order in which we do it.